Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes him pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's facts. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best. I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Welcome back to episode 258 of the Last Round Podcast. Thank you again for joining us once again here in the first month of 2024, entering our, sixth year as a podcast. So if you've been along for the ride since the beginning, we appreciate it. If you just started joining us, welcome to the Last Round. Jumping right back into it, fight reviews this past Saturday, the 20th of January from the Echo Arena in Liverpool. Natasha Jonas gets the, controversial split decision win over Mikaela Mayer for the IBF Welterweight Championship of the World. Jonas wins by scores of 96-95, 96-94, and the third one was actually for Mayer at 97-93. So, I saw on Twitter, I didn't catch this live, but I saw on boxing Twitter and all that there was a lot of controversy behind this, that I saw some people talking about that Jonas got the home decision. What do we think here? Was this, we want to use the word robbery, or was this a close fight that could have went either way? What are we thinking here?
Not a robbery as such, but I think Mayer probably took it. I think she probably won it by maybe 2 rounds. I didn't think it was overly hard to score. I thought Jonas started really well. Probably took the first 2 rounds, and then Mayer kind of came into her own after that. I don't know, for robbery, it wasn't like super one-sided where you're looking at 9-10 rounds to one person, and then, the judges managed to swing it the other way. But, I think, she probably did get a little bit of home cooking. Hopefully Jonas decides to give Mikaela Mayer, a rematch, maybe even go stateside or something like that for that, because I'm sure she's on the back end of her career. And
I mean, she's 39, right? Yeah, almost 40 years old.
That would probably be, probably the biggest payday for her, with Katie Taylor probably been tied up with some big fights coming up. I think that's, a rematch against Mayer would probably be the biggest cash pot for her. And it was an entertaining fight, as well. So I think people would probably pay to see that.
Yeah,
just
I can see that.
I thought Mayer looked well, actually. I thought obviously she jumped up a couple of weight divisions for this fight, and I thought she looked well. I thought she looked pretty fit. A lot bigger, a lot stronger. It was a decent fight from her. Really a good performance. Probably maybe one of Mayer's better performances, even though she lost. I thought she was a little bit more action than she used to be.
Yeah, a little bit more of the foot on the gas pedal. Like I said, 39 years old. Jonas, gives her another, path forward in the boxing game. Because obviously, if she got the loss, whether it was controversial or not, people would have been like, maybe it's time. You're almost 40 years old. She turned, I didn't even know she turned professional in 2017. So it wasn't that long ago. And she obviously turned professional in an older age bracket. And she was in the Olympics in 2012, which wasn't that long ago. So, I think you're right. I think I could see another rematch with Mikaela Mayer. Obviously with female boxing, wherever you can get your financial opportunities, you're going to try to get them. But you said that you think they could go stateside. Obviously, Mikaela Mayer's American from the United States. Do you think Jonas would want to come to the United States, or would she pull the card that a lot of fighters pull and say, well, I won. Why would I go to you? You just come to me again.
I suppose in all honesty, you just kind of follow the money. I think it's supposed to be maybe Jonas's last year as a professional. I'm sure she wants to cash out as much as she can, like anyone would. So it depends on where the money is. And if you look at it, really, most of the big female fights have been in the UK, so maybe she'll get to stay in the UK, because Mayer's come over to the UK and I don't think she's left. The Bumgarner fought over there. The last few of Shields' fights, I think, were over in the UK as well. There just seems to be a whole host of, female fights happening in the UK, more so than the US, unfortunately. So, yeah, maybe Jonas will get to do the rematch back in, her hometown again. I think it'll probably be the same for everyone, right? You just kind of follow the money.
Exactly, yeah. And Mayer obviously was a prior unified junior lightweight champion for a couple of years until she lost them to Alicia Baumgartner in a decision loss. I think it was October of 2022. And like you said, she stepped up in weight for this fight against Natasha Jonas. So, we see that a lot. I think we see that a lot more a more common occurrence in female boxing where they step up in weight. I think it's a little bit more common occurrence for female boxing because, you got to take the opportunities where they are. Like, hey, if I have to go up 10 pounds, like, okay, well, decent payday. That person's a champion because there's nobody in and around my weight class where I can make that kind of money. So, I think it's a little bit more common, as I said, with female boxing. Let me ask you this. With all the fights going to Saudi Arabia and all that stuff, and obviously in the Middle East, we know that in terms of, pathway forward in terms of rights and cultures and all that, for women, they're a lot less, they're behind, I guess, the times as compared to Western society like the United States and all that. But having all these fights that they've been having in Saudi Arabia and all that, Dubai, focusing mostly on Saudi Arabia. And also because what popped into my mind is the WWE over there has been going over there for a couple of years now. And it was recently, I think, within the last couple of years, they had like I think Saudi Arabia or wherever, I think it is Saudi Arabia, or maybe it's Dubai. Yeah, it is Saudi Arabia. They had recently let the WWE have two female professional wrestlers wrestle a match. So that was like I guess you want to look at it like a step forward. Is there anybody if you just had to take an educated guess in boxing that Saudi Arabia would say, hey, let's make that fight and let's bring it over here in female boxing? Like if you had to pick.
I know that Ramla Ali fought right on the Dubai card.
Oh, really?
Maybe someone like her, because I think she has a similar religious belief. I think she may be Islamic. I'm not too sure entirely, but if going off what they do on other cards, just probably the biggest fight that they can find, right? If they manage to do like a Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, they tend to just really go for like the best of the best, right? Because they want to attract that attention by like, hey, look at the fights that we managed to make by throwing money at it. And, these fights wouldn't be made anywhere else because we've got the biggest pot of money. So, yeah, something like that. Maybe like a Clarissa Shields against Savannah Marshall rematch or something like that. Just the best of the best, right? Michaela Mayer against, Baumgartner, maybe. Those are probably the biggest, more popular names I can think of off the top of my head, which would probably attract some eyes over there.
You mentioned Taylor Serrano. Obviously, they had a big event at Madison Square Garden, New York. Do you think we see that rematch, or do you think that's something that probably isn't on the table anymore? I don't think it's gonna get to the level that they got in that first fight, because that was a perfect storm for that female fight. It was perfect storm. Jake Paul got involved. They sold out Madison Square Garden. That was a huge event. They got a lot of publicity around it. It was big success, but I don't see them. I don't see a rematch. I don't see a rematch happening. I think Taylor retires before then, and I don't see them attaining the success that they did in the first fight in terms of attention.
I mean, yeah, the attention will be hard to replicate. I think now would maybe be the perfect time if Taylor, obviously it's not really in her persona to call people out, but when she got revenge as such over Chantel Cameron, maybe that would have been the perfect time to say, like, hey, let's, in the summer, Amanda Serrano in Ireland, the rematch, and it's my last ever fight. And then I think with it being that big, like, oh my God, like, this is the last chance we've got to watch Katie Taylor, win, lose or draw. She's going to ride off into the sunset. Jake Paul, Eddie Hearn, Conor McGregor, all those guys on social media promoting it. I think, that would probably get to be as close as they could do, especially with Ireland. Ireland would definitely turn out to watch that, against, because obviously the first fight was, super exciting, super close. And then if also Taylor kind of said like, hey, this is my swan song, this is my goodbye. I'm sure that
right.
Thousands.
Yeah, you're right. I can see that. If they kind of sold it like that in Ireland, that could be a big event. Last ever,
Yeah, because where else has she got to go? Was she Chantel Cameron 3? And then
like I said, these female fighters, a lot of them fight each other 3-4 times because the depth pool isn't there.
Amanda Serrano 2, and then after that, you're just kind of going over the same people, So if I was her, those are probably the last 2 fights of her career, and then she can, ride off into the sunset, right?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Also on the card, Zalk Chelly gets the 10-round unanimous decision win over Jack Cullen. This is for the British and Commonwealth super middleweight title. What do you think about this fight? Didn't we pick Cullen last week? I thought he was going to win.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Jack Cullen would have outboxed him, but Chelly did really well, managed to take it over the 10 rounds. Obviously now British and Commonwealth super middleweight champion. A good win for him. Both of them already have a few losses on their ledger and stuff like that. It's good to see where Chelly can go. I wonder if he'll stay at British Commonwealth level, box around there for a little while, or is he going to move up to European level? I'd be surprised if he managed to make a big hit on the world scene. But in and around super middleweight, I think he'd do well. And then there's some good British and Commonwealth level fighters. I think that he can face, have some good matchups and stuff like that. He's a very come forward, TV friendly fighter as such. So interesting to see where they both go, really.
Moving on to fight previews this upcoming Saturday, the 27th of January, from the Footprint Center. Let me say that again. In Phoenix, Arizona, on DAZN, Jaime Munguia, undefeated, 42-0, goes up against John Ryder, 32-6. The WBC silver super middleweight title at 168 pounds is on the line here. We were talking about this just before we came on air. I think this is a pretty interesting matchup. Obviously, Ryder fought Canelo. I think it was in Texas. Went the distance with Canelo. Canelo didn't stop him.
Mexico.
It was Mexico. That's right. It was a homecoming fight for Canelo. That's right. You're correct. I think this this happens a lot where these fighters who are angling for a fight with the more popular opponent, they'll fight the guys that they fought at one point so they can kind of create a narrative, publicity around like, hey, I beat this guy and you beat this guy. I beat him faster than you did. It creates some type of underlying marketing for a potential matchup, to see if fans want to get on board. So I like this matchup. I think it's an interesting matchup. And I think Munguia, if he wins, I think he is the favorite here. But I think Ryder's going to come to fight. And obviously Munguia and Golden Boy and De La Hoya would love if Munguia can get a shot at Canelo. They get into the Canelo sweepstakes again. And like I said, I've already said the last several weeks or so, I think a Munguia-Canelo fight in May is actually it'd be a big event. 2 Mexicans, I'm for it, man. I'm for it. But Munguia's going to have a tough task in front of him against John Ryder, because John Ryder, he can take a shot and he can give a shot. So, I think he's shown that he's not going to go down easy. What do you think about this fight?
I think it's going to be a tough matchup. I know obviously people are saying, he's going to be in front of, all of the Mexican fans over in Arizona, but dude, at the end of the day, he went into the Lion's Den and fought in Mexico with, what was it, 60, 80,000 or something like that, fans, in Guadalajara supporting Canelo. So I don't think he's going to be overawed by the occasion. And it's going to be an interesting fight because obviously, I wonder if the back of his head, Munguia's thinking to himself, right, I need to do better than Canelo. You know, I want to try and knock John Ryder out.
Right.
Call him out afterwards and obviously use that as like, hey, you know, I did something you couldn't do. I managed to get Ryder out of there. And obviously, last time out, he fought, you know, Derevyanchenko, right? You know, obviously.
And that was the toughest fight of his career.
Toughest fight of his career. And
but it was a great win. It was a very, very excellent win. It was an excellent
obviously, he had to drop Derevyanchenko in the last round to be able to win it on points. But he'd also dragged Derevyanchenko up from middleweight to super middleweight. But this time round, he's facing John Ryder, who is a legitimate super middleweight. So that's going to be interesting. You know, obviously, Ryder's got probably, even though he's got less fights than Munguia, I would say that Ryder's probably been in the bigger fights, probably has more experience.
Right. For Derevyanchenko, that's a good point. He brought Derevyanchenko up from middleweight to super middleweight. But I mean, Munguia also was at 160 for a while, and then just moved up to 168. You know, I never really viewed it like that. I mean, obviously he brought Derevyanchenko up the 8 pounds from 160 to 168, but I always thought it was a good matchup just because Derevyanchenko's already shown that he could fight. That's why I said I thought it was an excellent win. But do you think that Ryder, obviously based on time at that weight class, you think Ryder's going to be a tougher task than Derevyanchenko was?
Tough, good question. I mean, different styles. Derevyanchenko is a completely different style, obviously, to Ryder.
No, right, yeah, but like overall, like I think Derevyanchenko is going to overall be the tougher task that Munguia had. Ryder's going to be a tough task, but I think in terms of, you know, overwhelming moments, I think Munguia felt that with Derevyanchenko. I don't necessarily see it with Ryder, but Ryder will have, you know, some opportunities.
Yeah.
But you never know. Munguia's shown that he gets in firefights.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right in terms of, I think both of us probably said at the time, I think Derevyanchenko is probably Munguia's hardest test. And I think he is probably going to be a harder test than Ryder. I think Ryder's just got he's a lot more static than Derevyanchenko is. He's got an excellent chin. He's probably going to be bigger, thicker. He should be able to absorb some of the punches like he did when he fought Canelo. And I think it's going to be a tough test for Munguia, but I think Munguia wins it. I think it could go the 12 rounds again. I'm not too sure whether Munguia will be able to get him out of there after seeing what happened against Canelo. But at the same time, did he leave something in the ring against Canelo, taking that type of beating? So you've got to look at it like, okay, like he managed to do it against Canelo, but that may have taken something away from him.
Has he had a fight since then? He has, right?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
I don't think he has. I mean, I'm sure he got a pretty decent payday, right?
Oh, it's huge. Imagine fighting the star like Canelo. No. His last fight was Canelo, May the 6th, 2023.
It was, right? Yeah. Okay. I mean, it wasn't that long ago if you kind of think about it in boxing timelines here. But, you know, let me ask you this. From a boxing perspective, learning from a fight and using that development into your next fight in your career, who's coming into this fight with the bigger lesson from the previous fight? Is it John Ryder from Canelo or is it Munguia from Derevyanchenko?
A good question.
What do you think?
Derevyanchenko, I think.
Munguia from Derevyanchenko fight?
Yeah.
I think so too. But I think it's close, though. I think it's close.
I think because sometimes, you know, when you fight someone like Canelo, I'm sure Ryder, you know, I have a good chance to win, but Canelo's on a different planet. Whereas I think that may have shocked Munguia.
Right.
Getting in there, thinking to himself, like, okay, Derevyanchenko's been in some battles and, you know, but I'm the younger, bigger, stronger, faster guy. And then when he got to the really had to do it at the last minute of the fight, dropped him and stuff like that, he may have gone away and thought, you know what, like I need to work on some things because I was super close to losing this.
Right.
In a fight that was probably kind of like a showcase, essentially, right? He was headlining Toyota Arena against like a known name that had, I think, pretty much every time he'd stepped up, right, he'd lost. So I think maybe Munguia.
Yeah, I can see that. And if Munguia wins, obviously, I'm assuming it's Chris Mannix for DAZN is going to ask about Canelo and May, what they're looking at. I mean, Munguia's always been a pretty diplomatic guy and talking. And I'm sure he'll say, like, yeah, that's what we want. If it's there, it's there. We hope to make that fight. I hope so, man. I think a Munguia-Canelo fight, Canelo-Munguia, would be a big Mexican event for Cinco de Mayo. I'm a fan of that, man. I'm a fan of that. I mean, Chavez. I don't think it's going to be as big as Chavez Jr. and Canelo. The fight obviously didn't live up to it, but the event leading up to it, it was huge. Got a ton of press. A lot of of the Mexican audience and Latino audience were talking about it all the time. It was just a big event. But I think Canelo Munguia can kind of get a piece of that action too. They're gonna, a lot of Spanish language channels will be talking about the fight, so I could see that happening. But I don't know. You also got to think about it too. Like, well, PBC has, Canelo still for like another 2 fights or something like that, and they're trying to see what they can do for their new Amazon deal. Let me ask you this: who's, assuming Munguia wins on Saturday against Ryder, who has the bigger stroke? Is it Canelo or Al Haymon in terms of getting Munguia to fight Canelo?
It's kind of hard, isn't it, with that like Amazon deal? You don't really know what's going on because
we haven't heard anything as of right now, at least. I mean, I'm assuming it's gonna be soon, but
yeah, it's because you think about it, right? The timing is kind of perfect as well. Because if Munguia gets the win, right, it's the end of January, coming into the start of February. His fight's probably going to be Cinco de Mayo weekend, right? I'm not too sure of the date, but it's going to be around then. So you're looking at like 3 months. They've got 3 months to promote, camp, and everything. So you would think if Munguia gets through this, it's kind of the perfect timing because we've just seen it. It's like a showcase. Like we've just seen him huge knockout against John Ryder, and then boom, here's the next fight. So I could see this being, and hopefully it's going to be, Munguia, especially like you said, dude, it's going to place.
I mean, who else? Nobody's expecting David Benavidez in May. They're just not right now. If anything, the earliest is going to be September, if anything. And we've talked about this already on multiple episodes throughout the last several months, or the last couple months. Who's realistic for Canelo in May? I mean, he's with Al Haymon, so Al Haymon obviously wants to give his guys under his promotional banner the opportunities. Charlo already got the first one, right? Does he want to give it to the? I think it's Jermall Charlo. I personally don't want to see that, but I could see that. And then Spence lost. Spence lost to Crawford, and I know that was reported as a thing back years ago. That Spence moves up to 160 or something and fights Canelo. But I mean, what names does Haymon have for Canelo in May right now? Jermall Charlo and David Benavidez, right? Anybody else?
Not unless someone miraculously comes out of the woodwork, because he only does big events.
Well, yeah, exactly.
It's got to be a big name with a big following because of the big purses that Canelo demands.
And how much pull is and power does Amazon have in telling Heyman what to do, Al Heyman and PBC what to do. You know, I'm assuming it's a lot. Like they're just like, nah, like, you know, we want to see this guy. And I honestly, I think Amazon would love if they got two Mexican fighters in Cinco de Mayo. Like, oh, we got Canelo. Oh, and he's fighting another Mexican guy who's undefeated, 42-0. Like, he's also got a big Mexican following on our Amazon Prime. Like, oh yeah, we can say like, oh yeah, we got this event, blah blah blah. Like, marketing wise, I think it works for them.
I mean, away from the stable, who else do they have? They have Canelo for probably 2 more fights, right? I think it was a 3-fight deal when he initially signed.
Right.
Who else really draws like that?
No,
And
right.
maybe.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, PBC. I mean, just like any promoter, PBC, Al Heyman, he's going to try and do use all his power to get Canelo to fight somebody within the PBC that Al Heyman is connected to. Because I get it. The promoter, the advisor, Al Heyman gets a cut of the entire event. If you bring in somebody like Munguia and Golden Boy, for example, you're not going to get a cut of Munguia's purse, or it'll be Al Heyman and PBC running the event. Obviously, it'll be a lead promoter, but they miss out on the cut from the opponent because he's like, oh well, that's not my guy. But if you put your own guy in there, Charlo, Benavidez, or something, like, oh, my hand is in both cookie jars. So I understand that promoters do it all the time. They're all guilty of it. I mean, that's just the nature of the business. But I just don't see Canelo fighting the other Charlo. I just don't. I feel like what we know about him is like, nah, like it's just, I don't think that's going to work out. And he wants to, I think he's waiting on the Benavidez fight, maybe for September. He's waiting on that. So, I mean, if Canelo's planning tentatively or thinking about Benavidez for September, let's just say that, he's going to, you would think he's going to want to fight somebody in May that's going to kind of give him a fight and prepare him for that type of opponent, right? I mean, he already fought Bivol. He lost to Bivol. I mean, who else is there? It'd be better Biev or Munguia, right? I mean, you got limited options right now.
You really have. Like, Munguia, obviously, huge fan base. Mexico. Benavidez, big fan base. People generally think that Benavidez has a very good chance of beating Canelo
I think he does. Yeah,
due to his size. The Bivol rematch, first fight didn't sell too well. Maybe the rematch will, because I think maybe people didn't know Bivol and thought, oh, Canelo's going to smoke this guy. So maybe the rematch does a little bit better. And then, like you said, like, really, where else do you go? But we're talking in terms of popularity. There's plenty of people for him to fight, but they just.
I think Munguia is the most bang for your buck, man. Behind Benavidez, or maybe on par with Benavidez. I don't know. I think Munguia can give Benavidez a run for his money in terms of, financial impact of the actual event with Canelo. That's my take. But I think Munguia sells better as the opponent financially and marketing wise than somebody like Jermall Charlo. Yeah, I mean, realistically, who do you have? And I mean, we haven't heard anything. I mean, usually Canelo usually announces his fights for May, mid to late February. I think one time it went into March, but so in February we should probably hear something, right?
Yeah, in terms of promotion and stuff, right? You need to promote it as much as you can and stuff like that, just because of the purses that Canelo demands. You need to obviously push the fights because you need to get as many pay-per-views as you can. So you're looking at like media, lots of interviews, lots of promotion. So yeah, you'd think they'd want to do it by. And
they'd probably do media stops as they do one in LA, yep. And they probably go to Mexico City or somewhere in Mexico I mean, I could totally see it.
Yeah, you want at least, 8 weeks, right? You say 8 weeks tends to be like the usual time period when they, announce these big fights, just to kind of get everything done without having to rush it all.
Yeah. I mean, Canelo's going to be watching this Saturday. He's going to see how Munguia performs. Unless Ryder pulls off the upset, he's going to consider it. So I think it's very interesting. It's very interesting. But I think Munguia is the favorite this weekend against John Ryder, and Canelo's name will be brought up throughout the broadcast by commentary. And then if Munguia pulls out the win, he'll be asked in the post-fight interview and the post-fight press conference. I mean, that's just natural. And De La Hoya and Golden Boy, they're going to be clamoring for that fight too. Like, Munguia can beat Canelo. I mean, obviously they want to get in the mix again, get a piece of that pie, from the Canelo pie, now that they've lost it for a while now. But I like it, man. I mean, Ryder's going to be a tough out, but realistically for Canelo, PBC's plans when they signed him, they've all kind of went up in smoke. Like if Spence would have beat Crawford and then they rematch and Spence wins again, let's just say Spence was the winner. Spence would have been considered an opponent for Canelo. Like, hey, Spence will move up to 168. He's already a big guy and it's hard for him to make 147. He puts on a lot of weight. Spence would have been a considered opponent, but that's not going to happen, especially now that he just had some type of eye surgery or something. And, that's not going to happen. Jermall Charlo's there, and he's coming off a win, but I don't think a lot of people are clamoring for that fight. I mean, and Benavidez is the only one, essentially, that people are like, yeah, that's what we want. But I don't think we see that in May. At the earliest, we see it in September, and that's at the earliest, if not after. I mean, Canelo's been around for so long. He's like cleaned out the divisions, Like who? It's just Munguia. Munguia in terms of bang for your buck, marketable opponent. Who else is there?
Chris Eubank Jr.
Oh, no. No. I think that would be a big fight if Canelo went. I mean, Canelo at an event anywhere is big, but if Canelo went to the UK for that fight, Wembley, you think he can do Wembley Stadium?
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
Yeah, because people would look at it like when Lomachenko went over there to fight, it was a big event. People would be like, oh, Canelo, we're never going to see him again. This is the only time he's going to come over here. Let's go to that fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, Eubank, I mean, I don't know. Maybe Eubank, I mean, he talks and he's marketable, but yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. And especially, Amazon Prime. I mean, Amazon probably has we know that these broadcasters, like, they usually have to be in agreement with these opponents. Promoters submit a list of opponents to them and they kind of give the okay or not, like, oh yeah, we're okay with this one, we're okay with this one. So I think Amazon would be pretty happy with somebody like Munguia. But, yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be interesting. So you think Munguia Ryder goes the distance? You don't think it ends in a knockout?
I think the distance or a late stoppage by Munguia, maybe. Just depends, obviously. Did Ryder go away and enjoy that Canelo money? And,
I'm sure he did.
That's the problem. There's certain things like that when you're picking fights that we don't know. I don't know. Did he go straight back to the gym, or did he go away for 3 or 4 months and live the life with those millions of dollars he got paid? So that's those are the kind of the things that we don't know behind closed doors. But he's a durable guy. I think either a points win for Munguia or a very late stoppage.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think it goes to points as well. I think you're right. But yeah, it's going to be an exciting fight, however it lasts. Also on the card, Oscar Collazo, 8-0, goes up against Reyneris Gutierrez, 10-1. This is for the WBO minimum weight championship of the world, a minimum weight championship popping up on the event here. We don't see too many of those in terms of male fighters, do we?
No, Oscar Collazo, kind of known to us in Southern California, had a few fights around here, Fantasy Springs, places like that. Fun fight, good to watch. Obviously, being minimum weight, you get crazy amount of punches thrown, so it should be an interesting fight. And I think I'd go with Oscar Collazo for the stoppage.
And then also on the card, Gabriela Fundora, the sister of the towering Inferno, Sebastian Fundora, goes up against Christina Cruz for the IBF Flyweight Championship of the world. So, I mean, I don't know if she's signed some type of deal with Golden Boy, or is this just like a one-time thing?
Co-promotion.
It's co-promotion, right?
Co-promotional deal.
Is she under the Samson? Or is she under?
Yeah, it's a co-promotional deal, yeah.
Right? So, yeah, I mean, IBF Championship of the World. I think Eric Gomez had said something about this before it was announced that they had a world title fight. She's still undefeated. We haven't heard anything about her brother since he lost over there in at the War Grounds in Carson, California. I wonder when he's going to come back, but I'm sure he'll be at this fight cheering his sister on. Two undefeated fighters, so somebody is most likely going to have their first career loss.
Someone's O's got to go.
Someone's O has got to go.
Interesting fight because Fundora, for a female fighter, she's got some pop behind her. So I could see Fundora actually stopping Cruz. She's a
rare female KO.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'll go with Fundora late stoppage.
All right. You said it. You heard it here. Also this weekend from the Ulster Hall in Belfast, Northern Ireland on DAZN, Lewis Crocker, 18-0, another undefeated fighter, goes up against Jose Felix, 40-6-1 for the WBO Intercontinental Welterweight vacant title. This is a vacant title, so none of them hold it at the moment. They're fighting for a vacant secondary, regional title. I don't know if you want to call it regional, but something like that. What do you think about this fight?
Big fan of Lewis Crocker. I remember last time out when the Matchroom show in Ireland, he was a very good TV fighter, very heavy-handed. And obviously Jose Felix is the guy that, defeated Gary Kelly, if I remember rightly. So this should be a good matchup. I'm going to stick with Lewis Crocker, though, because I just want to see more of him. I just think he's a super good TV fighter. Always, likes to go for the knockout, very heavy-handed, come forward, just a real brawler. So I hope that, he gets the win and then we get to see more of him.
Also on the card, Paddy Donovan, another undefeated fighter, 12-0, goes up against William Andres Herrera, 15-2. A bunch of undefeated records this weekend, huh?
Interesting fight. Paddy's coming through, good prospect. Don't really know much about William Andres Herrera. I would imagine he's just come over as an opponent. So, but you've got to be wary. You're going to see when they bring over. I'm assuming he's Mexican with Andres Herrera as his last name. So
that's pretty racist.
Well, I'll take that back then.
No, it's not.
It's
I take it back.
It's because we've seen so many of these matchroom guys go up against these kind of so-called.
You're right,
opponents.
though. They bring these opponents, and then these guys spoil the plans.
Yeah, they come over, they see the dollar signs. If I win, and maybe I'll get a couple more fights on a matchroom show, and they go in there and start banging these guys out. So you still got to be wary. But I think Paddy Donovan, hopefully for the win. I think points, though. I think it'll be a points win. I think he'll kind of give us a little bit of a showcase, show us a few things, and
does somebody hit the ground, hit the floor?
No, I'm going to go with no.
I'm going yes. Yes.
Herrera climbs off the floor but still loses.
You never know. Like you said, that's a good point. They bring these opponents, and they bring these opponents from these Latin American or Latin countries, Mexico, Spain, all that stuff, and then these guys, how many times have they spoiled Matchroom's plans for their hometown fighter? It happens. So I'm going. Somebody hits the canvas at least once, and I think it ends by knockout. I think somebody gets knocked out in this fight.
I was wrong. He's actually Argentinian.
I'll see. Hey, but like I said, these Latin countries, they produce these fighters, man. You might not hit. Sometimes the ones that you don't know about are the most dangerous ones because you don't really know too much about them. So we will see. Also on the card, Siobhan,
Siobhan Clark.
Siobhan Clark, 7-0. Another undefeated fighter goes up against Tommy McCarthy, 20-5 for the WBA Intercontinental Cruiserweight Championship of the World, a 200-pound cruiserweight title fight for the Intercontinental Cruiserweight title. What do you think about this fight?
This is a big step up for Siobhan Clark. 7-0, going up against someone like Tommy McCarthy, who's like 25 fights. It's a big step up for him. So it's going to really see what does he have? What type of potential does he have? I think it's going to be a close one. I'm going to go with Clark rises to the occasion and shall I go
knockout?
I'm going to stick with my initial thought. Late stoppage.
You said it.
Late stoppage for Siobhan Clark, but in a close battle.
Close battle.
Yeah.
News and notes section of this week's episode of the Last Round podcast. Joseph Parker coming off one of probably his most significant win against Deontay Wilder within the last month or two. Will return quickly. Will now fight Zhang, the big heavyweight fighter from China, in the March 8th co-feature of Anthony Joshua and Francis Ngannou in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. This was announced by the Saudi Arabia's General Entertainment Authority. Both of these heavyweight fighters are in the top 10 in a lot of heavyweight rankings. You got to give it to Parker too, coming right back into it. And he's definitely one of the guys who's utilizing every opportunity that he has to get a payday out of this Saudi Arabia entertainment, show that we've been watching. He's in it, man. He's in it. He's getting it. And he's coming back and he's fighting a guy who, even though Zhang is I think 40 or in his early 40s, the guy can obviously show that he's still dangerous. So, assuming age Father Time hasn't popped up on Zhang's, career yet, you never know. Sometimes it just pops up out of nowhere.
I think he wins.
Parker?
No, I think Zhang beats him.
Knockout?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He's shown that he's still got it. So, but the crazy thing about it is that if Wilder won, what do you think do you think he would have participated in this fight, or you think that the plan was for Saudi Arabia to make Joshua Wilder next?
Yeah, according to Eddie Hearn, I think Coppinger or whoever released it at the time was correct in, if Wilder won and Joshua won that night, the contract had been signed and, obviously they just didn't want to announce that beforehand. So, yeah, I think all roads led to AJ and Wilder, but Parker obviously put a dampener on that and managed to get himself another huge payday.
Hey, if Parker wins this fight, you got to give it to him. Coming right back into it and fighting. Obviously, for the heavyweights, it's a little easier. They don't really have to watch their weight as other weight classes do and all that stuff. Stay in shape, but it's a little bit different for them. But Parker coming right back after one of the most significant wins of his career against Wilder, you got to give it to him, man. And if he can pull off the win, that's big. That is huge.
He must have made some money, that guy.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm saying. He's definitely utilizing every opportunity he's getting over there. So he's doing it, man. He's doing it.
Becoming, a stablemate, essentially, of Tyson Fury and hanging out with him and doing all that that's just led him to some big,
yeah.
His
networking has really paid off.
Yeah, 100%. And it's funny how, when everyone talks about him, even if they pick him to lose, when he fought Wilder, they always start with, he's such a nice guy. But, I think Wilder's going to win. So everyone just goes on about how much of a nice guy he is and stuff like that. And yeah, he's definitely absolutely creamed every dollar out of his career so far. And, fair play to him. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. It's worked out for him. So good for him. Also, Joyce versus Kash Ali is reportedly in the works for March 16th. So about a week later after this Joshua Ngannou fight. So, what are we looking at here? And then also on that same card, I think Solomon Is it Dacris?
Solomon Dakers.
Dacris will reportedly face David Adelaide on the undercard. So we got something within a 1 week span here in between both of these events, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of relative, right? Obviously, Zhang beat Joe Joyce. Joe Joyce will be coming back a week after, the Joe Joyce and Zhilei Zhang fight against Kash Ali. Someone obviously.
You think they're trying to position Joyce to, like, okay, if Zhilei Zhang wins, they want to do that rematch. But if Parker wins, you think Joyce is going to be like, okay, well, you won. I'll fight you next.
I think Joyce maybe would face Parker. I think obviously facing Zhang and losing twice. I don't think he probably wants any kind of look at that because he was beaten pretty convincingly, right? So I think coming back against someone like Kash Ali, someone of like British level, is a good comeback fight for him. Getting back in the win column, and I think moving back up. The heavyweight division is obviously on fire at the minute, and I think you'll probably see all of the heavyweights trying to, come back out of the woodwork, get some fights, and then hopefully try to get some of that Saudi money, because I'm sure they're paying, really good over there, even though Jerome Miller has to go and steal cars,
I know. It's insane.
Right.
What a story that was. And also, I wanted to get your take on your favorite fighter and mine, your all-time favorite fighter, Ryan Garcia. And his online communication, I guess. So let's start with the timeline here. Him and Devin Haney called each other out, and then Ryan Garcia said he wanted Devin Haney, and then we saw him, even though that I think Golden Boy at the time wanted the Rolly fight because Rolly has the belt, but then Ryan called out Devin, and then it seemed like Golden Boy was on board with that, and then Ryan Garcia goes his scene running with Floyd Mayweather, and then Floyd Mayweather retweets and posts some stuff too that kind of gets under De La Hoya's skin, and De La Hoya responds, and that little feud that's always going to be there. And then from one day to the next, Ryan Garcia says, "No, I don't want Devin. I want Rolly Romero." And then that fight, I guess, reportedly doesn't materialize, and Rolly starts saying crap, and they start talking crap about each other. And then Isaac Cruz is mentioned in some form saying, oh, maybe Cruz. I think Ryan Garcia posted about Cruz. Like, what the hell's going on there? And then Golden Boy or De La Hoya says, like, oh, it's going to be Ryan Garcia versus Jose Ramirez. We're going to try to make that fight. What the hell is going on with this kid? What is going on? You're the guy. This is your fighter, Mike. Tell us. What is going on with this kid?
Well, firstly, I would be telling him, hey, if you have a problem with something that I tweet or something like that, call me, text me, because it just looks super unprofessional that those guys, like, he's like, 1 minute he's like, hey, Ryan Garcia, Jose Ramirez in the works. And then Ryan's like, nope, not fighting him. You're like, dude, just text each other, or, same for Oscar though. Don't put something out there unless, he's spoken to Ryan or Ryan's team and said like, hey, are you going to be interested in fighting Jose Ramirez? Okay, I'll get on that. And then, I think De La Hoya, obviously it's his company, but Golden Boy and especially De La Hoya is just, he's essentially fed up with the kid because he knows that the Ryan's like kind of got some type of power now ever since he signed him, and his profile is raised, and he can kind of, bitch and moan and kind of get what he wants. So De La Hoya does that because he's having moments of like that he's pissed off. So he'll post something because he knows that Ryan's going to see. He's like, I'll take this. He's like, you're going to fight this guy. And he knows it's going to get under Ryan's skin. It's kind of like a little drama in high school and stuff like that. And I think they both just pick at each other. Like, I honestly think that's what it is, man. It's like a little rivalry. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong, I don't think, from there. I think the problem about Oscar is he still loves the limelight, doesn't he? And
yeah.
Unfortunately,
but he's still a star, man. He's still a star. Like, we've talked about this before, how Eddie Hearn has done so many interviews and so many podcasts and interviews and stuff for, his events. He's a promoter and stuff like that. He talks about the fighters and he kind of blows it up and stuff like that. De La Hoya is a bigger personality than Eddie Hearn is in terms of, global recognition. Like, but it seems like it seems like it takes a lot for Oscar De La Hoya to kind of lend his star power to a lot of fighters. Like imagine if De La Hoya was like gave interviews all the time and put his fighters out there and stuff. I mean, I get it. He's been in it for so long. He's just kind of like but he's got star power, man, and he knows it. He still has it. He shows up to events and people are like, "Oh, Oscar." He's still got the star power. And you're right. Maybe he still likes it. So he's like, I can utilize my star power and, push against this kid who's signed to a contract with my company. I still got him locked in. It's people say that it should be behind closed doors. I mean, ideally, yeah, but this is what we have is this rivalry between, a promoter and their fighter. This is what's happening. It's happening before our eyes. So it is what it is.
Wonder how many fights he has left.
Well, I mean, De La Hoya, I think, has said in interviews that he's had some locked in until like 2026 or 2027 or something. And you also got to look at it too. A lot of these clauses in these contracts are like, hey, if you decline these fights or if you decline these, like that adds like another 6 months or adds another year. Or if you don't fight for this amount of time, it adds another X amount of time to the contract. So, or if you're injured, you have to, sometimes those clauses are in there. So, who knows? I'm saying that, if he keeps rejecting these opponents, and I'm sure DAZN's also pissed off too. Like, come on, kid, like figure something out. We want to put on your events, make some money.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's one of the biggest stars, right? If you're both of them, if you're Golden Boy, if you're DAZN, you want your biggest, most popular stars fighting as much as you can.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know what the hell's going on with Ryan Garcia over there, man. Like, and I think it's hilarious too. Like Floyd and Oscar De La Hoya are still having that rivalry all these years later, and Ryan Garcia is being used as the pawn for both of them, essentially. I mean, if Garcia wasn't with Oscar De La Hoya's Golden Boy Promotions, do you think Mayweather would be hanging out with Ryan and being shown with Ryan in video? I mean, Mayweather's a smart guy, man. He knows like when stuff is put out about him or video that he lets people film or take pictures or something like that is because he let it happen. So he knows like, oh yeah, put this out there. I mean, it is what it is.
Doesn't he? He wants him at Mayweather Promotions.
Well, yeah, I think he just wants him to go over there to PBC. I mean, obviously, financially it'll work. I mean, Ryan Garcia's got a base, like a big fan base, and he's one of the more popular fighters in the sport. So I get it financially, but how much of it is also Mayweather trying to stick it to Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy? There's a rivalry there. Al Heyman, they don't like each other. They've shown it. So
we're gonna get Mayweather Pacquiao 2. Will we get Mayweather De La Hoya 2?
You never know, man. You never know. Yeah, what a crazy world this is, and it just keeps getting crazier. And it's still only the first month of 2024, so get your seatbelt on and strap in because it's probably gonna be a crazy year again for boxing, even crazier than the last couple of years. But once again, guys, thank you guys for listening to this week's episode of the Last Round podcast here in 2024. Before we sign off, once again, Mike, go ahead and let them know where they can find us and follow us.
We are at The Last Round 12 on Instagram and Twitter. And be sure to join next week. We'll be previewing Conor Benn's return against Peter Dobson and the big British fight between Dan Aziz and Joshua Buatsi for the British and Commonwealth light heavyweight titles.
It's coming. We're starting to, we know we haven't had a lot of guests on the last several months, some scheduling issues, but we're going to try to get back into that zone and get some guests on, some bonus shows and interviews going and all that. So for everybody who's been missing those interviews and those guest spots, they're in the works. So some stuff's changing in schedules around here. So we're going to be able to get some people on as guests, special guests and all that, and interviews, bonus shows back into that fold. So for my co-host, Michael Shepard, I'm Danny Z. This is The Last Round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is The Last Round Podcast.